I think right now is like a 1920s position. Don't worry, be happy because of all of the money printing as they were kicking off this whole system.
Yep.
And that's where we are. So ultimately, there will be a crash because they need to have that crash when they take that money spigot away. And then people will accept. I mean, I hope this is not true. I really hope this is not true. That's what your work is about. That's what my work is about.
Right.
But for most people not paying any attention at all and thinking things are just normal, well, we're about to see a major rash of inflation. That is transitory, but inflation is never really transitory. The
Sure.
speed can vary,
Sure.
but it's constantly eroding the value that you and I work for, the purchasing power value. That's
Yeah.
why I convert any excess into gold and into silver immediately so that I'm back on that gold standard. The originally the end date for the LIBOR, which is an interest rate index against which all contracts have been, well, the IBORs have been written. And last August, the nominal number was 640 trillion, which means nobody knows the true value at risk.
Right.
It's just what they agreed the contracts were worth. And but once it was leaked that this was a stated number, so that was during the great financial crisis, well, then they had to change that. So they ran a test in this country on 80 trillion of those derivative contracts to convert them into SOFR, which is the new benchmark that the US Federal Reserve has created. Other central banks have created some other ones. And like you said, it went dark. There was absolutely no mention of it. And then about 3 weeks-ish, something like that, they came out and said, well, we're going to postpone this until 2023, which is interestingly enough and coincidentally enough, the same date that the Fed anticipates having the Fed coin ready for distribution. So I think they did the test. I think the test failed. And so they had to try to buy more time. But it's a big experiment because it's never been done before. So personally, what always happens at the end of a currency's life cycle when all confidence in the government and the currency is lost is they bring a component of gold into the new currency. Then that gets people to trust it again. And then over time, they'll go ahead and remove it. So for me, I want to be in the currency that they're going to reset the fiat money to, which is gold. And then gold goes to its fundamental or its true value, which is really, again, you're about history. So what is the most important function that gold performs? It can perform a lot because it's used across the entire global economic system. But in my opinion, the single most important function of gold is to hold its purchasing power intact. And that goes back to what you were talking about and why you've got gold somewhere around 1,800 or so at the moment.
It's breaking out.
Breaking
out.
Yeah. It's still extremely suppressed.
Yeah.
So what I'm in is I'm in my accumulation phase where I accumulate silver for day-to-day barterability. That's its functionality for me. And I accumulate different kinds of gold for to do different functions. Like we're talking about real estate, and the biggest threat for most people are number one, the mortgage, and number two, the property taxes. And we've certainly been seeing a massive rise in property taxes.
Yeah.
That's how governments get the money, municipalities, et cetera.
And I expect that trend to continue.
I absolutely agree with you. So I'm just accumulating as well as putting in food, water, energy, security, community, and shelter. So that's the whole mantra. Now, when I see a cup formation, I mean, right now you've got income producing real estate here, just as an example, and you have gold and silver down here in value. But this will flip flop. And then my intention is to grab some of the gold and convert it into income producing assets, or even the cryptocurrencies that are going to survive this. because I don't think anybody knows. I mean, Wall Street has clearly chosen Bitcoin, and you're seeing a wider and wider adoption. So that could certainly be the one that survives in that little flower that's allowed, but that doesn't really generate income. But the income producing assets like rights, water rights, mineral rights, income producing assets, real estate, etc. So that's my personal game plan. That then will generate income that I can never outlive. And then it's also a foundation, if it's set up properly, to transfer the wealth to my family, my children, my grandchildren, etc., who hopefully will take good care of
Yeah.
what I've accomplished. You know, there are some good things about the cryptocurrencies, but I think we've got battle lines that are being drawn between the central banks and the corporations and even some of the governments that are, or municipalities that are starting to adopt this, and it'll just be an interesting battle to see. You know, I also want to just say that everybody has to do what it is that they are comfortable doing. Since I've been studying currencies since '87, you know, I'm comfortable with this because I've had this experience for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think a truly balanced portfolio, you've got some intangibles like cryptocurrencies, but you have the tangibles to balance that out.
Mm-hmm.
So that it really doesn't matter if you're right, if you're wrong.
Sure.
You know, I mean, that's kind of what I ask myself.
Yeah.
What if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? And if I can come up with choice or choices that make it so it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong,
Yeah.
you know, then that's where I'm going to be. So I think balance in there is a key. Not one, maybe not the other, you know, and I'm not a speculator either. Yes, I really feel like we need to be as self-sufficient and independent as possible to walk through this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we got a little sip of what that looked like a year ago when the grocery store shelves were bare and you couldn't get toilet paper. So, you know, I would encourage everybody to look at what their personal experience was during that period of time and see where you were most uncomfortable, and then start to plug those holes. Mm-hmm. But understand that inflation is here, it's ever present, and it's going to heat up even more. We'll see what happens into this transition. Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community is key, as well as shelter. These are the things that we need. And if we can come together in community, then, you know, you have a different skill set than I have, and he has a different skill set than she has. And if we come together, then we can all be independent